hammer of Thor every time you press the trigger. You're delivering more grains and more projectiles per trigger press, per decision to fire, per justified use of force. It is the most destructive weapon in the civilian arsenal. Can justify the decision to press the trigger once, you can probably justify the decision to press the trigger 9 times. But how many sight pictures, how many grip adjustments, how many trigger presses, how many decisions to fire would it take to do that with a rifle versus a pistol? So most handgun, you look at the statistics, handguns and rifles, they're pressing the trigger 7 and 9 times per interaction to stop a threat. With a shotgun, it is 1 trigger press.
Shotguns. So the old stuff is cool again, and we're going to talk with Cody from Vang Comp Systems. So what are you holding, buddy?
This is an 870 that we do. For people that don't know Vang Comp Systems, we turn bird guns into defensive guns. So instead of pointing them in the sky, now we point them on the horizon. And that means a couple changes to the gun, like you know. So Vang Comp, we put our horsepower on it. Obviously, what we're known for is lengthening the forcing cone and backboring the barrels to provide tighter shot patterns with less recoil and less muzzle rise with our ports.
Now this one seems awful short. Is this something anybody can buy, or do you need licensing?
Yeah, so the stuff that we do, we can either modify a gun that you have, or you can get a gun out of our catalog. This is an example of a catalog gun. It doesn't exist in the catalog yet. This is what's called the 965 W12, 12-inch barrel. W for walnut.
So this has to have like a spread like 2 feet.
You would think, but the Vang Comp system cuts that down. So there's, with buckshot inside the house, you're still gonna be throwing fist-sized patterns.
What about at like 20 yards?
At 20 yards with this one, you could expect to see about a 16-inch pattern.
Wow.
Yeah, so even though it's a 12-inch barrel, that Vang Comp horsepower on here makes it shoot the tighter patterns with less recoil and less muzzle rise.
So we're going to go to the range with you. Actually, you're going to stop at one of our classes and show off some of your wares. Just a brief background, because at the range you're going to do a whole demonstration. What do these things do that a regular shotgun off the shelf can't do? Why can't I just go to the gun store and say I need a shotgun for home defense or for my SWAT team or whatever? Why can't I just buy one? Yeah,
so the guns that exist in the market, they're mostly bird guns. And they're bird guns adapted to be fighting guns, that's what we do. We kind of paved the road and made that happen. But right now, there's not anything out there with the Vang horsepower on the barrel.
So I'm gonna jump in. I can buy like a tactical shotgun.
Yeah, right.
You're saying that's a bird gun that's been adapted. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Except for a couple limited things right now. The semi-auto market is really caught up with the A300s and the 1301s. But yes, as far as pump guns go, you're not gonna find an actual fighting pump gun unless it's got the Vang Comp name on it. So, yeah.
Describe a fighting shotgun.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into it. The main thing is that the barrel works with defensive ammunition. Most barrels, that's where everything falls short. We can mess with how you work with the gun and how you interface with the gun with shorter stocks and better sights. But if they don't have the Vang horsepower on the barrel, they're not actually shooting better. So that's what we do. We put horsepower in the barrel to make it do the tighter patterns with less recoil.
So this is like a trademark name, I'm assuming?
Absolutely.
So this means something to you, to the folks listening. Yeah. Do you have a cutaway or anything like that?
No, not yet.
No,
it's something we're working on. But yeah, we can kind of visualize it here. The patented Vang Comp system is where we lengthen the forcing cone and then backbore the barrel. So the forcing cone is it's a piece of geometry inside the barrel here. When the shell goes in the chamber, there's a taper down from the chamber to the bore of the shotgun. The bore is from the end of that all the way out the end of the barrel. So usually that's the same size cylinder. Okay. And then it goes to the back like a choke tube or something to tighten it down. Well, tightening it down, that mutilates the shot. It puts dents in them and then they fly wherever they want to.
So as that shot goes flying down the barrel at full velocity, it gets slammed down, and that's bashing those little lead pellets.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, you get smacked on the butt at 700 miles an hour.
Who cares? And what's the big deal?
The big deal is patterns downrange. That leads to flyers and a little bit more recoil as well. So that's where anytime we can take that compression and make it last over a longer time, meaning, hey, the angle, it normally ends here, and now it's going to end out here because it's slowly getting squeezed together. It's less mutilation of the shot and less recoil on the shoulder.
So 2 different things I just heard. We'll do the more complicated bit. Because that shot is narrowing over a longer section of barrel, the recoil, I think you describe it as more of a push than a
punch.
like a punch.
Exactly.
Okay. Because it's going through that choke, getting rammed down real quick. It's like hitting the brakes almost.
Yeah. Well, the forcing cone is a big hit in the brake spot, and the choke is a big hit in the brake spot.
Okay.
So Vang Comp System turns that into one long cone, slowly squeezing.
Kind of like a merge on the highway where.
Exactly, like a funnel. So that's our patented process, is our lengthened forcing cone that goes into that back bore to leave the exit diameter the same as it was. So it's not actually squeezing the shot down. The shot squeezes down because the back is bigger now. So this is bigger, which makes the front effectively more constrictive. But when you put choke tubes on things, it's restrictive of what ammo you can put through it. You can't shoot slugs through a modified choke, right? You can't, buckshot doesn't pattern well out of a full choke. So it's like with the Vang Comp system, you get the best of all the worlds without having to maintain a choke tube.
Interesting, interesting. Now you talked about the deformation of the shot itself. So just the fact that it's like, I guess, taking a baseball and slicing a chunk off of it, it's not going to fly right.
Exactly.
That's all it is. So that one goes zinging off left or right.
Yeah, it goes zinging off, absolutely.
I think I heard you say that somebody could technically, with this system, with good ammo, use this for precision shots.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ammunition is a restricting factor in a lot of slug shooting, but yeah, there's plenty of good smooth bore shotguns out there. You know, with the Vang Comp system, it's sort of blueprinting the barrel. You're familiar with that on precision rifles. So we essentially take the barrel and put a straight concentric hole from the muzzle to the chamber. So it's making it as accurate as it can be, and it's not strange for us to see 14 and 12-inch barrels doing clover leaf patterns at 50 yards of buckshot.
Wow.
Or with slugs.
With slugs.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
and let's just say you had a high quality buckshot round.
Yeah.
25 yards.
Sure.
With I know not this little shorty, but maybe your more conventional length.
Yeah.
What kind of pattern would a shooter expect to see?
At 25 yards with good buckshot, a 10 to 12-inch pattern is our guarantee.
Oh, you guarantee that?
10 to 12 inches.
Can you quantify good buckshot?
It's hard to say because ammunition changes. We've been around for 36 years, and the quality of ammunition and which manufacturer is top of the heap kind of changes.
Okay.
Typically, we have 3 criteria I tell people to look for. Look for velocities less than 1,400 feet per second.
Okay.
Look for plated ammunition instead of just lead.
Okay.
And look for 8 pellets of double-aught instead of 9.
Oh, really? So, like the 9 that went away, people love, they try to find, like 8's better.
I like 8 better, and mathematically, the circles 8 is better. If you think of trying to fit 3, normally most 9 pellet double-aught buck loads are loaded in the shell, and this is some nerd stuff, so stop me if I'm getting too weird. But
no.
3 by 3 by 3, that's the stack. That's 9 pellets. So 3 circles in a triangle. Well, they're skimming on the whole outside diameter when they leave a shotgun barrel. If you stack 8 pellets, most of those 8 pellet loads are stacked 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Those fly straight through this.
So they're not getting those flat spots cut in them, which gives you the flyer where that one projectile goes zinging off.
So the Vang Comp makes everything pattern better anyways, but if we start with better stuff, we get better results.
Very cool. And this is just one offering. This is kind of like you guys also, there's some aesthetics here on this one.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, this is, so the Vang stuff, like I was saying, 36 years ago, we started with the barrel. That's a patented system. That's what we do that nobody else does. Changes the way the shotgun shoots. Everything from there changed the way that you shoot the shotgun.
Okay.
So if we're admitting it's a bird gun that we're pointing at 2-legged predators now, let's make this better in a gunfight. So let's make the stock shorter so you can get more of your body behind it. Let's make the controls more ergonomic so you can hit the switches in high stress situations. Let's make some of our capacity devices tactile instead of visible, so I don't have to look to see if there's shells in there. I can just feel and keep my eyes on what's going on. So
you literally changed the follower in there so you can feel it. It doesn't feel like that flat plate. So if you guys can't feel it, but you've got a hole in it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can feel, okay, the hole's there. That's not a primer, nor is it that flat follower.
Yeah, that's the idea. So that started as an impetus for like, hey, some followers are rusting in place on older guns because it's just stamped sheet metal that they're rusted in there. Well, let's make it out of stainless. And while we're at it, let's make it self-cleaning. So we put ridges on the outside. And while we're at it, let's make it tactile. We saw a lot of people, we actually helped invent the high visibility follower. But being out at gun site and watching these professional people that use guns, in their day-to-day life, they were like, oh man, I saw them taking their eyes off a lot. That's Hans told me about the development of that. And he's like, they would take their eyes off it to check their high visibility follower. And he's like, let's just make it tactile so you can feel it without taking your eyes off of what's happening. So that's just an example of evolution that we've done, and now it's pretty commonplace. There's a lot of copiers out there, which is fine. It's flattering, the highest form of flattery. But stuff we're doing that no one else is doing, a lot of this sort of walnut stuff with the nice Kickies recoil pads. This is an aesthetic thing, but it also
Kickies is a brand.
Yeah, Kickies is this Zorbathane, really nice decelerator on the pad. So it's like the durometer of the rubber is a really nice, it's a
durometer? That is a made up word.
All words are made up.
That's true.
Yeah. So anyways, this one, durometer, this is the rubber. It has to talk about how spongy the rubber is.
Okay.
This is spongy enough to be soft, but not spongy enough to bounce.
I see.
So you get a nice consistent push on the recoil pad.
Kind of like a memory foam.
Sure.
It's not memory foam, but like that, where it's soft, but it's not springy.
Right, exactly. Soft but not springy. That's durometer.
I like it.
So it stays put where you plant it in your shoulder. So all that means is like, hey, it's more consistent. Every time we pull it up, every time we press the trigger, it's going to return to the same zero.
Now this is a Remington. You guys work on Mossbergs.
Yep.
You work on anything else?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the archives, we've done, old Brownings, we've done, Spaz 12s, we've done the AA 12s.
Oh, wow.
Essentially, if your barrel's not chrome lined, we can Vang Comp it to put that horsepower in it for you.
So if I had like an old Ithaca, you could do it?
Yeah, absolutely. We got some Ithaca 37s right over there.
Very cool, very
Yeah,
cool.
so the 37 is a great gun. Like I said, 12 gauge, not chrome lined, we're probably good to go.
Vang Comp Systems.
That's right.
Punch it into the Google, find them, order yourself a beautiful fighting scatter gun. You call it the Gauge.
I'm not just me, but yeah.
You do.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
call
nerd.
it the Gauge. That's true. We do this little demo. I just loaded this up. Don't do this for your defensive gun. Buckshot ammunition peppered with birdshot ammunition. The Dave Chappelle joke, right? That just peppers them up real nicely, right? After that, the gun's Jamaican. Buckshot, buckshot, buckshot. Load your gun with the same stuff. If you're gonna have different ammunition, put it on the side saddle, on the side of the gun. So it's like buck in the gun, slug on the side. If I can't solve the problem with buckshot, it's either distance or penetration, and that's what slugs are for. So this, you're gonna see birdshot, and then 2 rounds of the buckshot, just as garbage, 1,200 feet per second. And
when you say garbage, you mean it's like a weak loaded bird shot, or are you grabbing the buckshot?
So it is garbage buckshot.
Gotcha.
Meaning loaded by who knows who, in what factory to what standard. This is just demo stuff that goes boom. So I do this to show you the difference in pressure. So the ports are at a certain spot. There's a reason there's this many. If you count the sectional, like the cross-section area of these ports versus the muzzle, you're going to find some clues. The distance they are from the ignition here is also here for a reason. A lot of testing and development went into this. Hans went through about 100 different port configurations before we landed on these. And they're different from a 14-inch and an 18-inch because the pressure spike is lower out there. So we're going to take more advantage of it. There's more ports. Less ports on the short guns. You're going to see birdshot with low pressure, a buckshot with middle of the range pressure, and then a max load of buckshot. And I want you to watch as I run the gun with the push-pull method in the Vang Comp system offsetting the gas pressure. You're probably going to see more gas, but we probably won't see me moving and falling on my ass. Okay. I just emptied an MP5 into that thing. Sweeping the floors, that was not being paid, but waiting for the bus after wrestling practice in 8th grade. So Hans Vang, who created the system, which I'll tell you about in a minute, he became an adopted uncle from us. I used to live up there, work at gun sites, go pick up brass and pull the weeds at the Cooper's house, Jeff and Janelle Cooper. So that's where I grew up and ran the guns. Vang Comp Systems started because, as you guys know, shotguns, they shoot a spread of multiple projectiles when you run buckshot. In 1989, there was a requirement put out by the federal government that said they wanted a shotgun system to shoot tighter shot patterns without the use of choke tubes, because choke tubes were causing trouble downrange. If you don't keep the choke tube tight, it can become another projectile. Aside from the choke tube coming loose, they also wanted it to be have less recoil and less muzzle rise, because they're bringing on a lot of non-gun people into the force at that time. Smaller statured people who weren't used to the recoil of different, weapon platforms. So it was sort of a pie in the sky dream, saying let's make the guns perform better and with reduced recoil without the use of choke tubes. Because at the time, to affect your spread and tighten the shot pattern so that all your pellets land on the guy you're trying to shoot, you had to use a choke tube to make it tighter. Well, Hans Vang saw the requirement. He was working for a German master gunsmith, and he's like, I know a way to reduce the recoil on a shotgun is you backbore the barrel. So you make it bigger. So instead of the forcing cone, I'll show you guys on the gun when we have it out, but the forcing cone is part of the barrel. It's part of the geometry of the barrel. The metal forces all the shot pellets together really tightly right at the chamber, just like the chambers on your pistols and rifles. But it's a cone. Since it's smooth bore and it doesn't have to engage any lands and grooves, it's just a tube. So what he would do for trap and skeet guys was lengthen the forcing cone to take this angle and turn it into this angle. Well, that does the equal and opposite reactions. Means instead of squeezing all the pellets down and making all that force that goes back in your shoulder, by turning this angle to this angle, it slowly squeezes together. So there's much less of a punch and more of a push. So he's like, okay, that's how I make the reduction in recoil. Now how do we make it pattern tighter? So shotguns, because they're smooth bore, if you guys know about the choke tubes just changes the exit of the barrel. So all the pellets, they fly down the tube and then they get squeezed together in a certain size.
We were kind of just talking about that.
Very good.
The wink response.
Okay, nice. So yeah, think of the wink response at the end. That's the choke tube is a smaller, when it becomes smaller, it makes the birdshot pattern tighter, but it also cuts flats into these otherwise circular objects. So that's your pellets. When they have flats in them, they don't fly so straight. So how do we make a more constrictive barrel without it being more restrictive? Constrictive and restrictive are two sides of the same coin usually. So Hans invented the Vang Comp system. By lengthening that forcing cone and then backboring the barrel, leaving the front of the barrel the size it was, we make the back bigger and slowly point it down to the end. So it becomes more constrictive without restricting what type of ammo goes through it. So that's all sort of fancy words, but it's...
so it's a long funnel instead of a short one.
Instead of multiple short ones. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we turn it all into one big taper. So it's slowly squeezing the shot together, so there's less deformation of the pellets, which is what causes those flyers that you'll see if you ever pattern a shotgun. And it's not restrictive, so all the defensive ammunition, birdshot, buckshot, defensive ammo like slugs, those things, all of that stuff shoots through this the best it possibly could, better than any choke tube can do, with less recoil and less muzzle rise without having to maintain a choke tube. So that's the Vang Comp system. He also decided to port them because the ports, when we saw, Hans got to see people shoot the guns and they're like, oh my God, we've effectively doubled the distance that you can use your 12 gauge shotgun. When you talk about the defensive use of the 12 gauge, you got your A zone, your B zone, and your C zones. These are zones of distance from the target. The A zone is typically muzzle touch off until you saw, instead of just one hole in the target, you'd see an extra pellet when you can identify a pellet in the target. That's your A zone. Your B zone was from that extra pellet to, hey, now we got pellets off the target. Traditionally, a cylinder bore barrel is going to do, it's 1 inch of spread per yard from the target. So at 10 yards, you got about a 10-inch circle. At 25 yards, you got about a 25-inch circle. And that's where all your pellets are going to fly. Vang Comp System cuts that in half. So at 10 yards, you're seeing about a 5-inch group. 10 yards, you're shooting all of your buckshot right here. And at 25 yards, you got about a 12-inch pattern. So yeah, for a lot of people, it was like, wow, I didn't know shotguns could do this. So now instead of having to transition to slugs, because hey, now we got pellets off the bad guy, we can keep buckshot in that gun at most defensive engagements, things that us civilians can actually justify as defensive, and things that patrol officers can justify at shooting a shotgun. That just stretched that and doubled the effective distance. So with less recoil and less muzzle rise. So that was 5. So that's what it is. Mossberg 598-1, safety on top. It's got our big speed safety, our stainless steel follower, barrel system with the ports. It's a short barreled shotgun, so anybody that lives in a free state can get one. If you don't, there's a 18-inch version as well. It's coming. Like I said, state of the art. We don't even have the 18s yet. They're coming from Mossberg. So we take the guns, do our barrel system. We change the inside, do our safety follower, tube extension, Cerakote, edge brake and deburr, stock and 4-in. turn your gun into our gun, or you buy our gun from the catalog. That's what Vang Comp Systems does. So for 30 years, all we did was turn your guns into what we think a good combat shotgun is. When the new owner bought the place in 2020, we said, hey, let's get a catalog for the instant gratification or for folks who don't have a shotgun yet. So that's where we developed the 870s and the 590s, mostly those guns. So there are semi-autos out there. The Vang Comp Systems, since we're what we call a combat shotgun, we sort of invented the term tactical shotguns. People were like, how do you use a shotgun tactically? It's like, well, when you make it good for a gunfight, you can do a lot of cool things with it. So semi-autos were not tactical. They didn't work. You press the trigger. If it's dirty, it's not going to cycle. The pump shotguns, their near immunity from ammunition-related malfunctions is what made them good in a gunfight. No matter what you stuff in there, if it's 12 gauge, it's gonna fire, and you can rip it out if you're running the action. Modern day semi-autos, 1301s, Benelli M4s, A300 Ultimate Patrols from Beretta, they're looking pretty good. So we have focused on developing our system to modify those as well, to put the Vang Comp horsepower into those. So semi-autos are neat. They're fast. Defensively, I don't know how many times you need to send 9 30 caliber projectiles to the same exact spot. When we take into account target transitions, pumps and semis are the same speed. You can shoot as fast as you can see. You cycle the gun, you learn to shoot it and ride the recoil. They're gonna shoot different targets at the same speed. It's shooting at the same spot multiple times where semis really excel. So if you got a stack of ninjas coming down your hallway, the semi might be a good way to go, I guess. So, look out for those soon, but they're not out yet. I'm excited for those because the people that are getting in the Berettas and Benellis they're really excited about training with them and making them shoot fast. When the Vang Comp system is on the barrel, I've shot our prototype stuff. It just stays right there like a sewing machine. You know, your sights aren't even coming off the target. So that's going to be really cool with the 1301. So.
So coming from a female perspective, I grew up with having leaning defense in the corner at home a lot, and those were bird guns, and lots of time behind the gun bird hunting, also a firearms instructor, lots of rounds down the tube. What can you tell me, like, how would this be a really good option for a female?
Well, I mean, I think shotguns are great for everybody.
Yeah.
Females specifically, I know a lot of females, when we go shooting, it's their first time shooting the 12 gauge, they're kind of trepidatious about it, and like, I'm not sure. I've seen the media. I know that if I shoot a shotgun, he's flying back and I'm flying back, and it's just total destruction in front of me. So I would tell folks to go actually shoot it. A Vang Comp system, you can go to a range that actually has one, and you feel like it's not the same sort of thing that is depicted in popular media, right? So it's about 30 pounds of recoil, depending on what type of load you're shooting. That's in your shoulder, but there's things we can do to offset that with mechanics, techniques, ammunition, and modifications to make it more easy to handle.
So I got to shoot this gun yesterday, which it was lovely. Some of the things that I like about it is this padding back here is really nice. I like that you can add the different
spacers,
different spacers to make it closer to me.
Absolutely.
I like the lightness of it. We had some females in the class yesterday that got to shoot it, and one of the females had never shot the shotgun before.
Right.
And she really did. She was very afraid and kind of off-put about trying it, but she did. She tried it and she really liked it yesterday.
That was great. It was great to have her there. So
you also made some really good recommendations about maybe a class that they could try that gave some like fundamentals right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, when we were there, we were talking about we talk about the mechanics and techniques you can do to make it shoot with less recoil. The push-pull technique is a method of running the gun so where it doesn't beat you up.
Yeah.
And that's it's proliferated by Matt and Rob Hott from Simtac Consulting. So look up Simtac, SYMTAC. Simtac Consulting, they have a push-pull, taming the gauge. They call it the gauge too. So
when you were telling us about that yesterday, I think it really worked for a lot of the ladies.
Yeah.
It works well.
Yeah, we like to see that when we do a demo like that, I'll have them shoot one and say, okay, how's it feel? What do you want to change? Were you getting enough squeeze and push So squeezing and pushing really helps. And for the folks that aren't familiar with what the 12 gauge does, it is the most destructive trigger press in the civilian arsenal, and there's a price to pay, and that price is recoil. And that's why when the Vang Comp system is on there, we're cutting that 20% right at the tip, and then everything else you can do mechanically to offset that. And then, like I say, your strength with your hand or your body position, so a short enough stock with those spacers, you can really tame the beast. And now the price that you're paying is nothing compared to what goes downrange.
I like that.
Yeah.
Also, we heard a lot of people talk about how awesome it was to have the red dot on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Red dot sights they're great. You've got them on other guns,
Sure.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense on a shotgun. The same reason that it makes sense on your other guns with single focal planes and fast acquisition and easy clarification for longer distances. What we kind of like with these is that circle dot reticle. So some of the other, like Trijicon has now like a 50 MOA circle with a dot, and I really like that in a scatter gun when you're not using this like a slug gun. If it's not just a 73 caliber carbine, which is what we call it when it's just slugs. If you're shooting multiple projectiles, that circle reticle really helps you remember when you're presenting. I mean, obviously, who knows what's going to happen when the somebody rings the bell, but when you present this and you see that circle, you're like, oh yeah, that's where my pellets are going. So the Holosun, we really vouch for that. And so the one that you shot yesterday is our 590 Professional, and that's got that interchangeable spacer and everything, and that has the Vortex, the Defender CCW and closed dot. That's a really nice optic for the same sort of thing for shotgunners. I think that circle dot's a really good idea.
Yeah, a couple of ladies yesterday said that having that red dot on there made it less intimidating for them to shoot and know like right where they needed to be. You know, aiming the gun. So
that makes sense. That's why we do it.
Not to mention girls like pretty things.
Yes.
Look at this.
Yes.
They like beautiful things. So
thank you.
Yes.
Fire up! How do people find you?
Vang Comp, go check it out. Search your favorite search engine. Vang Comp, VANGCOMP.
And you are?
I'm Cody.
And you're on Instagram and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the OnlyFans too, but the company is just at Vang Comp.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mickey. Good to see you, man.
Bye now.